What the fauna?
Welcome to What the Fauna. Welcome to the What the Fauna. The one, the only What the Fauna.
What the fauna? Yes.
Yep. Yay! Welcome. I am Jen, one of your co-hosts, animal enthusiast, and all around. I don't know. I like stuff.
You like
I
science and like animals.
Yeah, I like learning new things, and I have a very vivid, like, not necessarily imagination, but just like I am a very visual person. So animals fell right up my stick because I'm sitting here looking at something and going, "Oh my god, that could eviscerate me in so many ways." Oh god.
Yes, yes, it can.
I don't know. Is that morbid too? I'm morbidly visual. And our wonderful animal expert and all-around know-it-all, Whitney.
Yay! I've been yeah.
I don't mean know-it-all in a bad way. I don't mean that. I mean that with respect and dignity, not like oh, he's got to know everything. No, he really
yes
kind of does. And then, oh my god, one of my favorite things about Whitney is Whitney's a real scientist. If he doesn't know the answer, he goes and finds out.
and look at the current research as best I can, if there is current research on the thing.
Primary source data. It's amazing. So on this show, you will hopefully get primary source real data. We do not we want to guarantee it, but science changes so fast. You know, there's new stuff we're learning every single moment. So if we do get something wrong, we always encourage you, let us know. We'll update everybody and say, hey, by the way, we were wrong.
Hey, we had things incorrect there.
We learned more. We got a new perspective, and So I actually can't remember what episode we're on.
I don't either. We're on episode something.
I think we're 11. I'm the one who's supposed to be keeping track.
We just did like a special episode, didn't we? Or was that
yes, we did a special episode. So we are back to we're on 11. Episode 11. Woohoo!
All right. Yeah.
Firmly into the double digits.
Firmly in the double digits, yes.
Hit me back when we're the triple.
Soon we'll be into the whatever digits. But yes, so today this is obviously a podcast about animals, and we fucking cuss a lot, and we're adults here. This is not a PBS show.
No, this is not. You will learn a lot, but hopefully you will laugh a lot. That is our goal, is to make you enjoy learning and laugh.
And I don't know about you. I have ADHD, so I go all over the place.
We go down a lot of wormholes and stuff, but you'll learn fun stuff and in an irreverent and funny way. And you will be the coolest guy at work tomorrow. After you listen to this, you will be the coolest guy going, hey, if you're ever stranded in the Arctic, don't eat a polar bear liver.
That's always the description people give me when I start spewing bullshit about animals and weirdness. Anyway.
You know what? I have found a niche of people who I absolutely adore, who come over and specifically ask for animal facts. They'll be like, Jen, what's a cool animal fact? Arteries in a giraffe's neck have to close in order for it to drink water. Otherwise, all the blood would rush to its head and it would go pop.
When I was in college,
people run away happy.
When I was in college, I worked one summer at an eggplant, and I just basically all I did was
an eggplant.
It was a manufacturing plant. It was a plant because it followed. Basically, it was literally we would go. There was 1 million chickens on 1 acre of land, and they just pooped out eggs all day. All we had to do was put them in boxes. It was just basically a manufacturing gig. It was boring as fuck.
No, I'm reveling in the fact that is an eggplant, not the eggplant I think of, not an aubergine, but an eggplant.
Yeah, it basically is factory work, which is followed under certain whatever laws, labor laws. However, because they always fight it, it technically was classified as agriculture. And the reason that pissed me off is because the overtime is at 60 hours a week, not 40. And literally the only thing that kept it agriculture was they refused to install one machine. And if they did that one machine, it suddenly would switch to that. even though literally all it was a factory, like it was all mechanical stuff.
Right. No
But,
overtime for you, peons.
Yeah, exactly. But while I was there, I got asked all sorts of random questions because that's when I was had my animal ecology degree, or I was going for it at Iowa State with you.
Yes.
And
we are knowledgeable and educated.
Yes. So they'd ask me such fucked up questions though. Like, but it was like, are zebras really striped? I was like, oh my God. Like, what is going on?
Yes.
Yes, they are. Holy crap.
The
best was we told the joke about the riddle about the rooster laying an egg on the roof. Which
I'm not sure I know this one.
Oh, it's a real simple thing. A rooster lays an egg on the roof. Which way does the egg fall down?
It doesn't. Roosters don't lay eggs.
Exactly. That's the gist of the joke.
Okay. I was like,
this guy did not get it because he swore up and down, roosters lay eggs. Roosters lay eggs. Like,
you work in an eggplant. You know. You have first-hand knowledge.
This guy also crashed a forklift into like $100,000 equipment, though. He was a special.
I'm not surprised at that. A forklift seems to be a very volatile instrument.
Yes.
He almost go to YouTube.
The thing was, they had like an FDA inspector, which is another fucked up thing because technically the company pays the FDA inspector.
Oh, goody. That's whatever. Not a conflict of interest.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of businesses that do that, and it is conflict. Oh, I just found out Boeing does that. So the entire airline industry does that. The inspector is paid by is an employee of the company. It's fucked up. Anyway, once again, I told you we're going to digest at some point. The guy just like the inspector was in this like booth, and basically they're in this like closed in little booth, but it's not like super like solid. It's just kind of like they're in a booth. It lets them see the light so they can candle the eggs, make sure nothing's there, and test a few here and there. He just plowed right into that, and the spikes missed her. Luckily, yeah, he just like went full like he had 30 feet of clear space and just like, whoops, I lost control. Right in. I was like, what the fuck just happened? Oh, well, I guess we're going home today.
Yeah, right. No QC today.
So anyway, yeah.
Oh my God.
Time there.
Yeah. No, I get crazy animal questions too. There's no such thing as a bad animal question though. It's someone trying to learn more.
Yes.
Which is great, and I love people trying to learn more. But I will not take one of my tortoises. I have tortoises. I will not take one out of its shell.
Yes.
Yeah, got that question.
Oh, yeah. There is a bad question, and here's my bad question. It's questions in bad faith.
Can I eat it?
No. Well, sometimes there's that. There's people that just want to be assholes, and like they're trying to get an edge out of the caretaker for the animal in the zoo, the animal caretaker.
Because Whitney was in the zoo field for a long period of time, working like 15 years right up and close with the people who are all
15 years, not counting my time as a volunteer in high school and college, but as full time after college was 15 years. But so in Georgia, when I worked at the kangaroo place, all the fucking time, I would get some pastor from some church trying to wrap me into start asking questions in bad faith because he wanted to get to the evolution fight.
Oh,
he'd always try to twist it. I'm like, I'm not going to argue with it. I'd
be like, I'm sorry, I have to go. Jojo over there is licking his testicles in front of the children again.
When I lived in Georgia,
I'm going to go give him some water so he can cool off and stop doing that.
When I lived in Georgia, I would say that literally happened at least once every week. Maybe at best, I'd have a 2-week gap between having somebody trying to argue with me about evolution, even though I never brought it up. Like, we purposely avoided it in the talks. We would talk about adaptations. We never talked about evolution because we're in Georgia, and that's how
Here we go. Today we're talking about the polar bear, which is a great adaptation.
Adaptations. Yeah.
Adaptation versus evolution. An
adaptation is a thing they have. Evolution is how they get that thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So polar bears are descendants of brown bears.
Yeah. more or less.
They split off about
Well,
a half a
remember,
million
hold it.
years ago. Yep.
The correct statement is they share a common ancestor.
Correct. And
Technically,
that's why I
they're
said
not
brown bear,
involved
not
from
grizzly.
brown bears, because brown bears evolved at the same time as polar bears. They just offshot some point in time a while ago.
Which is really, but I mean, they're still close enough that they
Oh, yeah.
still can mate and produce fertile offspring, which is something that it's dicey. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't.
Exactly.
Some people decide like what's known as a species or not. Sometimes people kind of go, oh, if they can't mate anymore, then they're defined as different species. But that's not always true. Like human and Neanderthal, different species, but they can mate.
Well, and the thing is, the definition of
that one in
mate can be they don't mate in the wild, or it's not a normal thing.
Exactly,
because there's different reasons why they don't mate. So there can be there's chromosomal.
Mechanical? I know you were about to
I was going to get to mechanical. I'm going to finish that with that one. I love mechanical, especially because I had a high school biology, advanced biology.
What are you doing? That thing. Well. That thing does not match my thing.
Okay, we'll just go to the mechanical.
No. We'll do. Okay, so genetic.
So and then there's chromosomal, where the chromosomes don't line up, and either they might make a offspring, but that offspring, the problem is because the chromosomes don't match up, it itself becomes infertile because the chromosomes can't split because there's not a pair to match up. That'd be like the donkeys, or not donkeys, but
mule.
The donkey horse, the mule. Thank you. The donkey horse, or a zedonk, which is a zebra donkey combo.
I don't want to call it a mule anymore. I want to call it a donk.
Or a tyon or a liger. A tyon and a liger. They don't. Which, fun fact, tyon and liger, do you know what the difference between them is?
Which one the mother and which one the father is?
Correct. Because there's a very specific, the liger is the more common one, more well-known one, because there's a specific genetic abnormality when I believe the mother is the lion, and makes them, basically their pituitary gland doesn't work. It doesn't turn off.
Oh, that's why they're so fucking huge.
Exactly. And they die at an early age because
from a large heart.
Basically, think of it like I don't know if it's a similar disease, but think of all those people that like have those weird diseases where they become 8-9 feet tall.
Andre the Giant.
But then Andre the Giant, I might have had it.
Or it might have been
I just heard a fantastic story about him today, by the way.
I love everything
about Arnold Schwarzenegger talking about a story with him. And basically, they were splitting the tab, and Andre the Giant's like, "No, I will pay." And then Schwarzenegger's like, "No, I'll pay." And then apparently, Andre the Giant picked Arnold Schwarzenegger up like a little child, and put him on the top shelf of a thing in the restaurant, and then went and paid. He was stuck on the. Anyway,
love it.
So, yeah,
we promise we will get to polar bears.
We will get there after we go through our weird trains of thought. So anyway,
so chromosomal. Then
chromosomal, mechanical. Those are the ones where literally they just can't mate physically. You can also have.
Why do you have claspers?
You can have temporal.
What? I'm sorry. What's the other one?
Temporal. Yeah. So there's a lot of bird species that are separated. They could technically mate, but they are technically different species because one feeds and goes to mating at a different time of the day, so they never match up.
Oh, okay.
And then there's also some that it's locational, geographic, and
they're just never going to find each other.
Kind of. There are some bird species, once again, they're defined because one mates close to the inside of a tree branch by the trunk,
by the
and
node.
The other one stays on the outside of the tree branch. So they're
You're
literally
thinking locational, like one's North America, one's South America. No, this is. I don't want to be
2 feet of difference.
I don't like banging against the bark of the tree.
Yeah, exactly.
It ruffles my feathers wrong. I like the leaves. No. I like the Jesus.
One goes out to the nightclubs, the other one's trying to meet people at church. Those two are not going to meet.
just slightly interesting.
So you got a lot of different reasons, but because they don't do it enough,
locational.
And you still might have occasional mixing of the genes from those types of situations, which is what I think happens with the brown bear and the polar bear.
You know what? I think
But
I
I
think
know.
there's a legend of an island in which some grizzly bears are on this island, and polar bear males will come and mate with them because
Mhm.
polar bears can swim very far. They can go
Yes.
very, very far. Um, but way farther than the grizzlies. So the grizzlies can't leave the island because
Yep.
they can't swim that far, but the polar bears can.
Mhm.
I also don't know, it might also be there might be some gestational stuff too because we'll learn polar bears do it weird.
Eh,
Um, so there might not be a lot of grizzly fathers. We'll go
okay.
we'll go into
We'll
it. We'll
go into
probably
that. Yeah.
we'll go into it. So are you guys ready to go down the wormhole of the word polar bear? We all know how much Jen, I don't know. I don't think it's a fetish. I don't even know. But I love words. Words are great. Like last episode I got to use onomatopoeia and stuff. And this one
Anamati.
this one I get to use. I think the coolest word I get is papille in this one. But I
I
have
know.
a lot of fun. Does anyone know why a polar bear is called a polar bear? No, no, you don't. It's okay. It's okay. No one really
Why
does.
is it full?
No, and
I
I'm gonna
don't
smack you for that. No, I just kidding. Okay.
know.
So really easy way. Okay, anytime you see comics or anything where a polar bear and a penguin are in the same place,
Yes.
wrong, bad, smack you with a ruler. No. If polar bears lived where penguins live, there would be no penguins.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
yeah, pretty much. But
Yeah.
also, yeah, they
Yeah.
just live on two opposite
Totally
ends of the
different. Okay.
planet.
So the word Arctic
Mhm.
comes. Hold on. I'm gonna get this right. I'm not gonna mess this up at all because this is so cool. Arctic comes from the Greek word arkolos, which means bear.
There. Yep.
So Arctic means near the bear. Antarctic means not near
But
the
the
bear.
thing is, that's not named because bears are up north.
I know, that's the coolest part, is it has nothing to do with the polar bear.
No.
But it relates, so you can think of it that way. Think of it, Arctic means bear, Antarctic means no bear.
So
Great.
for modern entomology, it makes sense. But
It does. But that's not why the Greeks called it that. The
no,
Greeks, this had nothing to do with
they didn't know
polar
about
bear.
Antarctica
Yeah, they
or any
didn't
of
know.
that.
Their bear they were talking about was Ursa Major, which
Yeah.
is we Americans think about it as the Big Dipper. It's the Great Bear. The
Yeah.
Big Dipper is actually a larger constellation called the Great Bear. There's
Well, it's
also
one part. Yeah. It's kind of like the belt of Orion. You can just look at it. Is I
yeah, you
think
keep
isn't the belt of
going.
Orion like the handle of the Big Dipper or
Mhm.
something like that? I can't remember. Anyway, there's some constellations that kind of overlap.
Yeah, and they kinda
Cheers.
combine it, and
Yeah.
okay, so this is before light pollution when you could see the stars.
Yeah.
Apparently, if you could see them all, probably from Antarctica or something, you no, duh, I'm just oh god. Anyway,
Actually, well,
yeah, in the Arctic, if you could see all the stars up there, you would see a nice big Ursa Major, and you would
yep.
also see Ursa Minor. Ursa Minor is the little bear. Okay, Ursa means bear in Latin, by the way. But so Ursa Minor, actually one of the stars that makes up the little bear is the North Star.
Right.
So when the Greeks were naming the Arctic and the Antarctic, they were relating it to the stars. You can see the Big
Bear.
Dipper, the
No
Great
bear.
Bear, Ursa Major from the northern hemisphere. You can't see it on the southern hemisphere.
And
Thus,
by chance, it still works.
it
There,
still
well,
works.
there are bears in the southern hemisphere, but they're like, not they're not all the way in Antarctica. There's none in Antarctica.
Yeah. So polar bear gets its name. The North Star is named Polaris.
Yes.
That is the name of the North Star. Thus, the North Pole being, called a pole, I think, I guess. That thing. So polar bear gets his name from the Polaris star being part of Ursa Minor,
Yep.
being
Being up
part
north.
of the
Far north.
Antarctic.
There's far north as you can get.
Damn.
And
That
they
is the most
travel.
complicated naming thing I've ever
Oh
heard.
no, I'm sure we can find some more complicated ones. But yeah, basically
Well,
it's just up north. It's by
yeah,
a pole, so they're like polar bear.
the bears are named for the stars.
Um,
It's beautiful, isn't it? They're named for the stars that
and then
surround them that they can see. It's
yeah,
pretty.
Yeah,
But what they
I could
do ain't
claim.
so pretty.
Well, I saw a ton of penguins. I did not see a single bear when I was in Antarctica. That was
Nor
like,
did you see any stars that
oh my
resemble
god,
bears,
that
according to
was
the Greeks.
oh god.
Did you see
This
God?
yeah, this winter, this December will mark the quarter century from when I went to Antarctica.
Jiggle penguin.
It was a quarter century ago, Jen.
I love Whitney because he went all the way to Antarctica. We live in the Midwest of America. He went all the way to Antarctica to jiggle a penguin. And the whole time he was going there.
I didn't. That's not why I
No,
went.
he didn't jiggle a penguin. You couldn't. You would be molesting the
fine.
penguin. But I was jealous. I was jealous.
Anyway,
I was so like internally, like the whole time in college, I was like, the whole trip, you were gone for like 3 weeks or whatever. I was like,
yep.
Fuckers out there jiggling penguins. God damn it. And I'm in Iowa with corn.
And
Fuck,
actually,
I want to
it was
jiggle a
colder in
penguin.
Iowa than it was when I was down there because of the whole like, you know, it's the austral summer.
You know what that gives me an idea? I'm gonna get one of those squishmallows and like put like somehow a bag in there of beans or something to make it jiggly but squishy. I'm telling you, it's my $1 million idea.
Anyway, back to those bears up in the north.
Polar bears.
So they take up basically the entire North Pole because they're like from Russia to Canada, all of that area. They don't give a fuck about the ice. They'll just walk on the ice.
And that's what they do. They need the ice to find their prey.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're super adapted for it because they're white.
They do.
Kind of. They're white to blend in with the snows because there's literally nothing to hide behind. So you just better be.
So this is my question. Okay, so they're not white, so they blend in with the snow.
Correct.
They're white. They're not white, but they blend with the. Yeah. They are okay. So their
visually
fur,
yes. In actuality, no, because of physics.
Yes. So their fur. But if you take a single strand of their fur, it's actually translucent.
Yep.
And it's hollow inside to capture air to keep them warm.
Because the best insulator is
static air.
Just air.
Static.
Gas, anything that's gas won't distribute heat as much because the molecules aren't touching. Mm-hmm. So that's why our insulation, our mugs is mostly, if you cut them open, is just air open space.
But not a breeze. Any sort of breeze fucks up the whole system.
Yes.
So they're translucent, hollow hair that, because of optics, looks white.
Yes, because of the way the fraction of light goes in and then reflects out. Mm-hmm. But also, that means some of the light is going through their fur and hitting their skin, which then heats them up, which their skin is actually black.
Mm-hmm. It's black to absorb all that.
We currently theorize that that's because it helps for heat absorption of what light does go through. Now, I will say, because of that hollowness, surgery on a bear is a mess in the operating room. Because
is it that, or is it the 4.5 inches of fucking fat and blubber that you got to cut through?
There's other animals that have big fat and blubber and stuff, but yes, that is an issue too. But the thing is, you
keep
have
going,
to
keep going.
If you're going to cut open an area, what's the first thing you have to do?
Shave it.
Shave it. And this hair is just hollow air. So what it does is it floats in the fucking and everybody's inhaling it the entire goddamn time. And it gets in your face and it's everywhere. And
it's fluffy. And they have under down too to help keep them warm even more.
They have a 2-coat similar to like a husky might or certain others. Anything that's really adapted for cold. They have a coarse outer fur, which is usually used for wet. Basically, it just lets the water go over. And then they have, but for insulation, you want nice, soft, fluffy fur. Desert animals tend to have just the soft, fluffy fur for insulation, and then but no coarse fur. So if you want to really cut something that's super soft, most desert animals are very, very soft. A lot of them are, but polar bears have kind of both going on. If you cut the undercoat,
so to try and shave it is a son of a bitch.
Yeah, it's just because it literally floats everywhere. You kind of want to have a vacuum as you're doing it to. Because
but Whitney's completely right. Being white ish, being the same color as their environment helps them tremendously because they are mostly ambush
Predators.
stealth
And they're
predators.
yep,
But at the
and they're
same time, what adaptation like went first? Because they're clear to keep them warm, but the warm or that also helps their environment. So it's
well,
kind of a
honestly, those
cool
would be
tour of
it
the
would happen at the same
forest.
time because whatever coloration pattern
Yeah, whatever
would definitely
mutations.
be very highly pushed. As far as what came first between the brown and that most likely the brown was there first, and then they eventually evolved that new fur, and then as
This
they
is
went,
kind of a chicken and the egg thing, except
yeah,
an egg came first, because duh.
yeah, yeah. This question is, but honestly, I feel like these would come at the same time because
Yeah, they
that
kind of
hollowness is what causes the refraction, which causes the whiteness.
which
So,
causes because of the warmth, so they could continue to keep
yep,
moving farther and farther north. Because these
they
guys can withstand negative 50 degrees
yeah,
Fahrenheit.
and on a regular, just they usually are at negative 37
Yeah,
uh,
they're just like,
Celsius, negative 34 Fahrenheit for a standard of living. And
yeah, they're cool
even
with
in
it.
that temperature, they actually overheat quite a bit. So they have to rest and
That is,
relax a lot.
yeah, that is
It's
one of a
probably
polar
the
bear's
number
biggest
one.
plight in life is overheating because they can run
Yep.
really far,
And of
but they'll
course, that's why they're
overheat.
listed as vulnerable because we all know climate change is happening. And if you don't agree with it, well, I'm not going to agree with you. This is where I studied this for years, and no,
You
it's
are
happening. There's too much
wrong.
evidence. Yeah,
Um,
and these polar bears are having issues with it because
yeah.
there's less snow, and then also they overheat so easily. In the
And they require ice to find their prey.
yeah,
And unless there's big sheets of ice, we'll go into it. They've got more adaptations for that. So
right,
they are by far not well, maybe not by far, but they are the largest land predator
yeah,
alive at this time.
and classified as a marine mammal.
And a marine mammal. Yeah, they do.
They
And
are
you
classified
think
as a
most
marine mammal because of where they live and how they live, even though they're
and
not like the
they
other
are
marine.
dependent on water. I
Yeah,
don't
they
think
technically don't set foot on land a lot of the time. Like most
they
of the time,
should.
they're
Yeah.
just on glaciers and ice.
Mhm.
And if those glaciers aren't there, they literally dig in the holes. Their dens are literally just in the ice itself because
And the
there's
more it
nothing else.
snows, the better their den. Like they create an igloo basically. Like
Yeah.
they make their own igloos. It's wonderful
Yep.
for them.
Exactly.
The males get 8 to 10 feet tall if they stand up. They're about 1,300 pounds. So that's I believe that's about the standard size of a quarter horse.
Right.
So they're horse size. The female 6 to 8 feet tall, 700 pounds. This is a situation where the female is smaller.
Yep.
Not always the case, but this case, yes, females are smaller.
Mhm.
About 50% of their body is blubber. So they got, not as good as a penguin. What, penguin 70%
Something like
blubber?
that. It's a
So
lot.
not
Yeah, they're like 60-70%.
yeah. We already talked about how that
No,
outer
yeah,
skin, right under their skin, is about 4.5 inches of
of
blubber
blubber. Yep. It
all
is.
over their body, except pretty much in their tail and their ears. So theirs are kind of small,
Yeah.
keep
That's
keep
to
the heat in.
reduce any chances of them getting damaged that way. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Their
I mean, it's
lifespan
just
is
basically
about
blubber.
20 years, which I mean, I guess that
Yeah.
I'm being almost kind of around twice that age. I think of it as not that old, but I mean, for being a huge predator, that's pretty
Right.
fucking old. That's okay. Their claws are typically 2 inches in length.
Although I will
Um,
say in zoos,
just
they
big.
do live a little longer.
They do,
Um,
which
it's
is not
actually
always
it's
the
now
case. Some
found
animals don't.
their median lifespan in zoos is 23, and the average in the wild that right now is at 27. Last I saw.
Oh,
So
really? Oh,
yeah,
awesome, awesome,
as I'll say, I
awesome.
was like 20 seemed low. Had to do a quick
Okay.
check on that.
Oh no,
'Cause-
I'm always happy to learn, that I'm wrong. Yeah. So, they're we talked about them being they're marine mammals. There is a record or on record a polar bear, a male polar bear swimming 526 miles.
Yep, it's not common. They don't
It's not common.
do that all the time. which is why it actually causes more problems with, once again, warming, because usually what they do is just walk on the land. They'll go into the water they don't go deep. They only go about, right now, actually, we don't know exactly how deep, but it's theorized right now about 20 feet, give or take.
Okay.
Is about how deep
I was surprised how fast they are. They can swim up to 6 miles an hour.
Yep. Yeah.
That's pretty damn fast.
You know, it will surprise you when we get to sloth.
Sloth, how fast they can move and how non-slothy they are. Oh. Ooh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm digging for
we'll
it.
Get to that to the sloth episode.
Yeah.
We'll
so polar bears can swim like nonstop for easily in one day. They can swim 60 miles in one day. And not a problem. Average. Not training for it. Just blah.
Right. But basically, they only do it for food purposes. They are the only bear I know of that is a strict carnivore.
Mm-hmm. That's what I read.
Habitat, because there's what grows in Antarctica.
Nothing. So yeah, they're a strict carnivore, and they have more adaptations than you would think. They've got adaptations or mutation on the genetic level for that. Because they eat the highest fat diet of any other creature. Now's a good time to talk about the diet. No?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're mostly they love seals. Seals is the majority of their diet. They can smell a seal from 40 miles away. I'm actually really glad I don't have that ability to smell anything 40 miles away. Otherwise, like the Cinnabon would just, at the Schaumburg Mall would drive me nuts.
Right.
I'd be like, I fucking smell those assholes.
And then also how much horrible ass things you'd have to smell too.
Right? Right.
Yeah. They are intimidating. I remember seeing one up close a few times, and
polar bears?
fed it. Oh yeah.
I
didn't work with it specifically, but at a few conferences I got to see the training of them, and they had it stand up, and I'm like, yep, that'll fuck me up. It's like twice as tall as me. I'm like, Jesus.
But the odd thing is, between what was it? I was like 20 or no, I'm sorry. It was like between 1990 and 2020, there were only 8 deaths of humans accredited to polar bears.
Yep.
4 of which happened in zoo settings. So
one mauling happened at my facility long time before I moved here.
So
everybody tells you the story. I don't know the exact extent of the story because I've heard so many iterations, but basically we used to have a polar bear exhibit. We do not have the finances to actually manage one in a proper modern way, so that we don't have one now. And we never had one since I was here, but I think it was in the 80s, maybe. They had one, and basically, from what I understand, somebody left the door open, and it got out. And then to stop it from getting to other people, the keeper went in and coaxed it towards him, and he ended up getting a little bit mauled before they were able to dart it and get him out.
Define a little bit mauled.
I don't know. I wasn't there. I just know that the guy's career was his career was over. It was for multiple reasons. But
wait, was he the one who left the door open?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad he bit that bullet.
As I said, this is all piecemeal from just hearing it from hundreds of people who weren't there.
Okay. Because there are researchers who are researching whatnot, and they got caught in a storm, ended up setting up a tent near polar bears. Unfortunately, polar bears tearing through their tent. And most of the time, though, the stories end with the polar bear tears through the tent and goes, "Oh, I'm going to go away now. I thought you would be a seal."
The thing is, humans are
like vastly disappointed at a human. They're like, "Oh."
Yeah, there's a thing that humans apparently are not as tasty as
we think.
We'd like we would be.
Basically, we'd be delicious. We're pink and squishy. There's not a lot of hair and.
Yeah, they just, for whatever reason, a lot of predators choose not to eat us.
Apparently, sharks don't. I don't know if that's a myth or not, but
they are desperate or mistake us for something else.
Yeah, sharks typically, once again, humans, we look like seals. I hate to break it to you.
Well, when we're especially when we're on a
seal, shark, seal. They're looking for a seal. They don't want us. Yeah. Sorry. They want the seal. Usually they bite and go, "I can't. That's not a seal. Fuck, pet. Give me something to wash my mouth out." Fucking human. Yuck.
Yeah, there's not a lot. It is increasing though. That's why actually a lot of research is going into tracking them with the climate change issues.
Are we talking about
Because
polar bears or sharks?
polar bears.
Okay.
With
There's a guy, I can't remember his name and now I feel terrible, who has invented a new collar. One of the hard reasons it's hard to track male polar bears is their necks are thicker than their head is
so they can
big.
just whoop.
Yeah, so any collar you put on it, they're just like slide that fucker off. This guy studied burrs in the wild and created a tracker that he can wedge in like a burr into a polar bear's coat. Which we'll see how long that lasts. Polar bears are incredibly clean. Like after they eat, go look at a picture of them eating too, because it is fucking brutal. Oh, that transparent, that translucent hair just soaks up the red blood.
And there's a lot of predators too, and I've seen pictures of it. If you watch them eat, a lot of predators, because the danger is by the front of the animal, eat the animal asshole first. So
many.
And the thing is, it's also the slowest way for the thing to die.
But there's always a peekaboo moment. Like they're starting from the asshole, but there's a peekaboo when they come out the abdomen. Like, woohoo!
Yes.
But polar bears, within the next thing they do, they don't nap yet. After they're done eating, they go and they bathe, or they'll use snow to rub they really try and clean themselves off. Probably so they can sneak up on the next prey. But, whatever.
Well, they got to be clean because because otherwise, if they're covered in blood, they don't blend in anymore.
Oh, right. They stick out a lot.
They stick out a lot. There's nothing in Antarctica or Arctic.
There's nothing that bright red. And it's really bright. Really bright.
It's pretty bright. Yeah. So they have to make sure they're clean all the time. Yes.
So they love themselves some seals.
Yep.
They do a really cool thing with the seals. Oh, no, go ahead.
They have that really big diastema that, like, basically the front canines and the space between their, what we would call premolars, which is like the cutting part of the back teeth, is pretty big.
And they do still have molars, which a lot of people are like, oh, why do they have molars? Their molars are for shredding. They have specially shaped shredding molars.
What we would call premolars. So, because for humans, we call them premolars because they're the shape, like the slicey type. Not the grindy type.
Not the grindy type, yeah.
Yeah. So they're all slicey all the way back. And then, but the thing is that diastema, that space between their front teeth and that section makes it so that they're basically their mouth. If you look at like a construction thing that with one of those grabbers, like you need that space truck? A crane truck. Yeah. You need that like space to actually grab the stuff. So there's actually a big space there so they can grab the prey and then drag it back because they can hold that big chunk of meat. Because if it's too small, they'll bite and then pull, and it will just slash and cut open.
Yeah, instead of drag. And there is a lot of dragging. A lot of dragging with polar bears. So ringed seals are the ones, I'm not sure everyone knows this. They live under the ice, about 6 feet under the ice. There's water beneath them, and then they have kind of like a little hollowed out area so they can sleep and chill. But between the water and that ice above them, they need breathing holes because they're mammals. Duh. So they'll puncture. They've got these sharp claws, and they'll puncture like 10 or 15 of these little breathing holes in the ice above them so that they can breathe while they're doing their thing. And they'll keep those open all winter long. As the ice thickens, they'll keep puncturing them and keep them going. So that's actually how the polar bears smell them. It's kind of like a little smell you motherfuckers. And polar bears will sneak up, and they're really quiet. We'll go into their paws in a minute, but they're really super quiet. And they'll sneak up and they'll sit by one of those, I don't know what you want to call it, like the little holes in that little area that the seal is. They'll sit there from hours to days waiting for the seal to come out of the water, chill up on their little latch, and then they will full on fucking monster stomp them. They'll like raise all the way up on their 2 back paws and just drive with their face and their front paws down 6 feet down into the ice, into the snow, snatch the seal and pull it back up. And that dinner is served. But those seals are like 150 pounds. So they've got to be able to chomp, grab on that, and drag those fuckers out. Where they proceed to eat them, you know. Surprisingly, this is statistically, polar bears, unfortunately, are one of the I don't want to call them the worst hunters, but their hunts are only successful about 2% of the time. It's pretty small. The one that gets me, do you know who is by far the most successful hunter on the whole planet? Who wins the
Dragonfly.
majority of the time? 98% of the time they try and eat something, they win.
Dragonfly.
No.
Well, I know a dragonfly has almost a near 100%.
It's high up there, but the highest is actually the seahorse. Has to do with the structure of their face and minimizing ripples in the water. We'll do a whole episode on that.
I'd look into the dragonfly too, because they have the same thing, because they have like they don't move until they have a nearly perfect success rate.
Exactly. So
I don't think a researcher has actually seen them miss.
Okay.
Weird.
We'll go to, but so they only win about 2% of the time.
Yeah.
But they do go after, they'll go after any kind of seal. Love the seals. Beluga whales. I saw a really interesting one, and I felt bad for the beluga whales, but the beluga whales also have to breathe air. And so the ice is thickening and getting bigger. And there was maybe a 6-foot diameter hole in the ice for this whole pod of beluga whales to try and breathe out of.
Polar bears just sitting there on the edge, waiting for them to pop out, and then go
slash at them,
pull out of the ground.
And you felt bad. And actually, there have been, I've seen human interference where we come and smash holes leading to the open ocean for the beluga whales.
Yep.
Otherwise, eventually the ice will continue to freeze, even though they're trying to turn it up and try and keep it, from icing over. Eventually it does, and the whole pod will more than likely suffocate.
Yep.
But yeah, so occasionally a polar bear will get a fucking beluga whale. Good for them. They're scavengers. They'll eat, like, if a whale carcass
whatever they
washes up.
Find a carcass.
Oh yeah. Yep. There's a video. Okay, I know I'm talking about a lot of videos. Normally I don't, but there was a video of a male polar bear. Male polar bears are kind of dicks, okay? Scares away a mom and her 2 babies that were scavenging. That's, kind of a dick.
That's pretty standard in bear world. If it's not my kids, I don't give a fuck. And if it is my kids, you got a 50-50.
Yeah. If they're definitely not his kids, he might kill them so that the female goes back into heat. But if they are his kids, best he'll just ignore them. So anyway, but so it was a rotting whale. And we all know what kind of nice, delicious gases rotting whales get. They actually have on video him puncturing that abdominal wall. It exploded. Like the camera went flying.
That reminds me of one of my favorite internet quotes. It was like a video from like the 60s or 70s where the whale went on the shore and they decided to dynamite it.
Yeah,
the blast blew blubber beyond all believable bounds is what the reporter said.
It hit a car like a mile away.
Like, that is fantastic. It's funny that
I'm pretty sure, like you said, the camera got blown away by this video, but I'm pretty sure the polar bear survived. But goddamn, that was probably really a fucked up moment for him.
Yep, 100%.
So the one that actually gets me the most, the prey that gets me the most for a polar bear is occasionally they will go after walrus. If they're in the water, they're pretty good against a walrus. Walrus weigh 2,800 pounds, so close to 2 to 3 times that of a polar bear.
Right.
Plus, they have those big tusks. They'll like crowd up, they'll group up, kind of like the Cape buffalo, around the young to protect the young, with the bigger, stronger ones on the outside. So it's really hard for a polar bear to attack and actually get a walrus on land. Even in the water, usually they'll slip away too. But what's really interesting is there's some scientists, the Inuit tribe people are the ones who have pretty much the most knowledge about polar bears.
Right.
They're there.
I was looking up for breathing hole terms for the the seal that you did.
Yeah.
All of it was just native words for it.
Oh, jeez.
I'm like, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it.
The Inuit word I cannot pronounce, but the Inuit word for the polar bear is the sea bear.
Yes.
They're in water.
We call them marine mammals because of where they are. Like literally Are they mostly on land? Yes, but they're literally not on land because they're on an iceberg.
Yeah.
They're on a.
So the Inuit people, though, really cool. They have been observing polar bears for hundreds of years. They say polar bears have been using large chunks of ice, dropping them and throwing them at walruses to knock them out or knock them around so that they can eat them. And us white people who know so much better have been telling the Inuits, no, that's silly. No, that's silly. Until recently, because polar bear training, I know you said polar bear trainer, but that's pretty hard. It's hard to train something that big.
No, it's not. Okay. No, this is the thing. Like this, I'm a positive reinforcement trainer by day now. Like, and the thing is, I learned it from the zoo because I can't make a polar bear do what I want.
By negative reinforcement
on it. But basically, we just do positive reinforcement. I mean, that bear that I witnessed had like 30 or 40 behaviors attached to it.
Well, there's a zoo in Japan. The polar bear is named Gogo.
Yeah.
And they are testing its cognitive abilities and they're working with it, and they are finding it using ice and blocks of ice as tools.
They play with stuff all the time. That wouldn't surprise me one bit that they would.
I was surprised.
I always feel we're finding more and more that our assumptions on cognition with other species is so species centric. It just follows in with the whole ethno-European ethnocentric idea, but we do it to the whole species, and we always assume animals can't do things. There's way more tool usage than we originally thought, and I just want
to see. I know I have to find. I'm sure there probably aren't any video, but I want to see a big block of ice being thrown by a polar bear at a walrus. Going,
I've seen them throw it for fun because like they'll get a big chunk of ice and then throw it into their exhibit, and then it would just like throw. But I've never seen it. I've never seen it throw it at something because obviously it's alone in its exhibit, except for when we want them to breed. Which that's a fun way that we tested.
That's great.
They trained a dog to actually ideate the urine.
Wait, to breed with a polar bear?
No, they trained it to identify when the polar bear was pregnant. The dog would alert to the urine samples and let the research, because it was cheaper than actually sending it to the lab and faster and more accurate.
I love it. Like like the dogs are hanging out at the end of the day. I found cocaine and some luggage today. Oh, did you? I found a pregnant polar bear. What the fuck?
Now, here's the thing. There is an interesting way. Speaking of polar bears mating and breeding and all that, they have to find each other. And one of the things that I think is fun is where the pheromones are on the polar bear, the female polar bear. Like a lot of animals have it around the face, so they rub their face on stuff. That's why your cat is basically loves.
Are they on the pads of their feet?
They're on their feet, so they don't have to do anything except walk. And when they're ready to breed, it starts putting out the pheromone, and then the male will be like, "I'm going to travel 100 miles to find this bitch."
Right? They'll like smell each other's footprints, which are big. So their footprints are like, people say dinner plate size. I'm thinking Clydesdale size, huge, because they're aquatic mammals. They swim a lot, but their front paws are webbed.
Yep.
Yeah, bigger than your head. Yeah, only their front toes are webbed. The back is not.
And also, they use the back legs more like a rudder than a
to kind of help them get direction. But the feet are webbed. They're huge because also when you're walking on ice, you don't want to be like a horse or something. You want to
spread that
weight out.
Yeah,
as much as you can.
If you're trying to break the ice, you don't hit it with a big broad thing. You hit it with a spear to pick at it.
Yeah, that physics thing, a sharp directional force rather than a displacement of it.
Yeah.
So they're big, wide webbed. But what's also interesting is I get to use papillae. They've got little nubby papillae to help them from sliding. So, and the nubs kind of almost move around to act like suction cups, like the absence of them. So they can kind of, like, they're not as good as a chameleon, but still.
And let's explain papillae to people who might not know. Basically, it's like to increase the surface area of the foot, they have a lot of grooves and a lot of just basically it's almost like the skin looks like hair. If you look at the bottom of the pads of your dog's foot, they have it too a little bit. Particularly if they have if they're a winter variety. And you can literally see what looks like it's actually skin, but you can separate it out and it looks almost like hair structures. And the reason for that is to increase surface area, because if you're sliding around, you want as much surface area as possible. Geckos use something similar. That's why they can walk on walls.
They use muscles though.
No,
to activate
they don't have suction. No, they use papillae. Except theirs, they use what we micro papillae. So theirs are so small that the bears, they're going in ice. So they just need it to kind of like go into the grooves that the ice has, the various notches and grooves. The gecko literally does it on a molecular level and finds all the grooves in the molecules of the surface.
If they're doing what, wet rocks?
What?
I'm trying to think which is slipperier.
They literally do any geckos do any surface.
Yeah, but like, okay, we'll talk about geckos later.
Well, we'll talk about it more. But the gecko is for climbing up things and going upside down. And whereas the bears just like, I just need to be. They don't need the micro stuff because they just
they just need to like not bust their ass.
Yeah, they're just not trying to not slide on the ass. But it's the same general concept of how the two things are working, just on different scales.
Yeah, so their pads, their feet are huge, incredibly important to a polar bear. These gigantic feet, but yeah, so the pheromones come out. So researchers actually can collect DNA off of footprint marks of polar bears and see kind of who's where. Yeah, exactly. But what's interesting about their mating is they might smell a female in heat, kind of. But she's technically not. She's technically not in heat yet. Their intercourse, their what is the word I'm looking for?
Sexy groovy time. Brown chicken, brown cow. That.
Well, they're very, very seasonal. So they mate in the spring. Okay. But the female does not start to ovulate until she starts having sex.
Yes.
So the ovulation is induced by the sex.
Yes.
Which is kind of odd.
Well, it's a scarcity of resources, and it's a situation of how broad and large their territories are. Like bears have some of the largest territories of most land predators, just because of the amount of space that they encompass.
Yeah, well, they need a lot of food. And that they need a lot of range.
That they meet up and actually do something. They don't want to waste energy ovulating until the male gets there. Because otherwise you end up with a panda situation and they're not meeting up at the right time. And then it's like, I'm not in the mood.
Yeah. And it's almost though, like we talked about the large range. Male polar bears will of course fight, they'll strut and stuff, but rarely, very, very rarely will they actually try and kill each other. Usually it's a fronting show. Like even they know resources are scarce. Life's hard on everybody. Just fuck off and let me mate with the female and you're fine.
That's pretty much across the board with most mating things. Most males in most species will, or even if the female with a few species where they're the more aggressive of the two, they generally don't want to fight because fighting risks death. Because you got to think about it, there's no vets out there. Even like, I mean, what's the number one thing that kills soldiers back in the day?
Gangrene.
It would be gangrene, or they called it the soldier's disease because we had swords, so tetanus and things like that. Infections, basically.
Yeah, infections. So basically, anything like a broken tooth that gets infected could be fatal. Like it's not something that's going to kill you right now. It's a limp that's going to slow you down.
And now you can't eat. And now you're
it's
dead.
An abscess in it's anything. So So anyway, so female male find each other, which takes a while, but males will swim that 526 miles, find that female. So the male stays with the female for a few weeks, get that gestation or the ovulation started, get her pregnant. And then usually once he's like, I'm sure she's pregnant, he fucks off. He'll go find another male another female, and males will, So polar bear gestation is actually very interesting though, so the female ovulates, her eggs are now fertilized, and this is in the spring. Her fertilized eggs will not implant until the fall. So she'll spend 4 months getting resources and fattening up.
Yep.
And if she doesn't get enough, the eggs will not implant.
And this term we used before, because we were talking about it with kangaroos, is embryonic diapause, basically pausing of the growth of the young until it's ready. So it gets a few cells big, but not like...
Yeah. But once she gets fat enough and enough healthy stuff, then usually it's twins, sometimes 1, sometimes 3, but usually twins.
This process is basically controlled by stress hormones. If stress hormones are there, that stops the implantation, and hunger is a stressor.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
Especially, and so then let's, all things good. She gets enough food. They implant. They spend the next 4 months. So now we're 8 months into gestation. Excuse me, not digest. And then the babies are born about December. Beginning of the new year. She builds kind of a den. She stays there because the babies are born. I was surprised. They're only a pound each. That's really small for a baby.
Yeah, for when they're first born. Yeah, that's very, very small.
Compared to a 1,000-pound mama, that's like 1.1% of her body weight. It's really small. But so her fat reserves have to last for the next 4 months because the babies are blind, they're toothless, they cannot fend for themselves. Definitely not. They even with mom, they still have problems.
Yep.
She builds a den in the ice and keeps them all nice and warm and snuggles with them. And then in the springtime, they're big enough and strong enough after, sucking milk for 4 months to get out. And they stay with mama for 2 to 3 years. Yeah. She'll nurse, 22 months? Something like that?
Something like that. And during this time, I believe that's when, because polar bears don't, actually, no bear that I know of actually hibernates, but they do go through what we call a winter sleep. And I don't think polar bears do.
Does it qualify as a bromate, where it just it's not quite hibernate?
No, it's not bromate.
It's not bromate either. Okay.
It's not bromate. They call it a winter sleep because they just sleep a lot more. They're sluggish, but they come up and do stuff. But the thing is, the female mostly does it.
You just described me on a daily.
Yeah, but do you have a poop plug?
A poop plug?
Yes. So bears.
Tell me about the poop plug. Oh God.
They literally have this thing. They literally make a poop plug, and when they're in those states, because they're not consuming, so they're not making a lot of feces or anything, it literally stops them from pooping. And then when they are done, it comes all out.
Oh my God, probably as bad as a hippo.
Oh no, the hippo's horrible. Oh God. And the hippo does it all the time. They don't
have a poop plug, but it's they wag their tail while they're doing it to spray
the propeller.
It's like diarrhea into a propeller. If you want a visual of what a hippo's like. Well, they don't eat, they don't drink during this whole time. So, it probably helps their large intestine absorb more water too.
So basically resources are scarce and whatnot while they're staying in there. I'm pretty sure the cubs do defecate and urinate. And of course, what do moms do in the wild? They eat the poop. So that way there's less evidence to find.
You know what though? But I don't know. There really is nothing that hunts a polar bear, even a young polar bear.
But the mom can be caring for the young for 8 months without going out to get food.
Yep. And then she's very hungry. We'll call that probably hangry at that point.
Yes.
Because a polar bear can eat 100 pounds in one sitting.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
When you're a predator like this, you want to gorge. So they're going to
and then sleep and stuff. But so we talked a little bit about their diet of what they're consuming, and what they want is 100 pounds of blubber. They're going after the blubber first. Give me that fat, which is
energy. Yeah. When I went to Antarctica, I met up with
blubber eaters
that were they were the adventure types, and that's how I'm like, what do you do when you're the world in Rome? They end up as the guides on an Antarctica tour. So that's
why not?
So one guy he traveled they walked from Canada to Russia. It was some weird combined thing showing combined effort between Russia
You know
and
what?
Canada
That's what
back
I'd
in the
like.
Gorbachev days.
You know what? I want to prove that I'm worldly. I'm gonna walk from Canada to Russia. No, that's like on the last fucking thing.
Yeah, one of the guys, they like had those ski shoes to once again spread the surface. One of the guys, it broke on a chasm that they found, like just a big hole, and he almost fell straight into the Arctic Ocean when he was doing that. They did find a few bears, but there was enough of them that had stuff to scare. It was funny because they did that. They walked to the North Pole. Then, of course, it became a big political thing. So, like, leaders from Canada and Russia showed up for a picture moment with them. So they hadn't seen people for like a month or so in this harsh, almost dying climate. Then these people,
and then of course the leaders show up in their suits, smile,
and then they flew away. They came in on helicopters and then flew away. And then they had to continue
like those assholes who are like, I touched the top of Mount Everest.
So
what,
they were the first team to
go
from. They were the first team to walk from North America to Europe.
Oh, cool!
Ever.
So he taught you to eat blubber.
Well, and also the woman that was on the first all women's team to walk to the South Pole. But basically, what they had to do, most of what they ate was just butter, because they needed something so high concentrated in fat to create enough energy. Because what's the number one consumption of your body's energy? Heat. That's just keeping it alive. Like we worry about like, oh, you got to work out, but that only literally increases your actual caloric body needs by like 5% or something like that.
Great. You're going to start
stuff.
This podcast is going to start a trend of people in cold.
Yes.
People are going to be like, you know what? I'm going to turn the heat down in my house to 50 because I'm going to burn more fat.
Yeah. So that's actually one way to do it. Technically,
shivering burns a ton of
now
fat.
It might cause other issues, but that's but yeah,
so, which is interesting because humans,
that blubber, all fat. But you're saying that's interesting.
But we're not humans, and grizzly bears, other bears cannot eat that much fat. You know, we can't metabolize it. It causes horrible heart disease. But polar bears don't have that problem.
It causes that disease if you're not actually digesting it, because even the humans that went down, like they still were losing weight faster than they, so it wasn't. But
still, you get that much cholesterol and that many lipids in the bloodstream.
If your body's burning through it, your body's burning through it. So it doesn't matter.
The polar bear genome is has genes specifically related to cardiovascular function and lipid metabolism and adipose tissue development and heart function. So they have all these specialized genes to
have the high.
Yeah, so they can eat that much fat and not have huge heart problems. They don't get, you know, typically you don't need a triple bypass from eating too much fat for a polar bear. Their bodies are meant to metabolize that. They need it. They can't really switch to a different diet. It's like, oh, but maybe they can eat seagulls. No, they need that fat from those seals and from those, you know, the whales and stuff. They need that
to maintain that negative 30 plus
degree.
Like 30 plus degree, negative 30 plus. Yeah. Yes, so they need all that fat.
I don't like my feet getting cold.
Yeah.
No, like I you know, I don't like being that cold. I like cold. I'm Scottish, but not that cold. So this is actually one of those things we were talking about the paws. Do you think that is where humans got the idea for snowshoes?
Well, we've watched a lot of animals. Like basically, there's a lot of animals that do that spreading. So yes, we did steal that from. That's actually one of my favorite subjects.
Like snow leopards too. Like
it's it's reverse engineering of nature.
Oh, I know. So I know how much you love that.
Something like that. But yeah, we did steal that idea from a lot of different
animals.
Sorry, by we, generally the people who invented snowshoe type things were native cultures, and actually European native cultures as well.
There's some.
Like there's like thinking like, well, Sherpa's a job, isn't it? I'm trying to think of that like Northern
is more of a Sherpa,
Northern Asia kind of cult. There's a few indigenous people there. I know I want to say Norway. they had it, and then also Inuits came up with their own system across the globe. But basically, they watched animals and they reverse engineered.
Hey, because Inuit people also do something very similar to hunting of seals that the polar bears do, where they're waiting, they see those air holes and they wait by it.
And
they
then
do that.
Here, boom.
Yeah, polar bears actually. The other cool thing they do, like I said, cognitive function wise, we're still kind of like some people are like, oh, polar bears are really smart. Other people are like, no, they're kind of dumb. But they've actually been observed also pretending to be asleep while like floating. So they'll go out and swim and pretend to be asleep until a seal is dumb enough to come closer, and then they're like, snatch, like boom, lunch.
That's why so this goes back to the species centric thing. The thing is, we try to define intelligence based on what we do and what we want.
Exactly.
There's different intelligences and different needs. There's a great book. I suggest everybody read it. It's a sci-fi one. Now it just suddenly left my brain.
Speaking of cognitive,
I will get functions. It here soon. Yeah. But basically the premise of it was that being able to being self-aware is actually like a hindrance. So they meet alien races and people are like, oh, these are dumb. And it turns out but how did they build these giant spaceships and everything? The whole concept is basically, oh, these things aren't self-aware. And actually humans are one of the few things that self-awareness was actually
really.
So it's just an interesting
there is, if people like science fiction, there is a great show. I think it's on Netflix at the moment. I think it's called Love, Death, and Robots. Does that sound
Love,
familiar?
Death, and Robots? Oh, yeah.
Some of those, they get a lot of alien races and stuff, and a lot of little like Twilight Zone, Black Mirror moments where you're like, oh, that's messed up. Yeah, I think it's Love, Death, and Robots. I highly recommend.
Love, Death, and Robots has a lot of good
and it's one of those great ones where you can just watch 1 or 2 episodes. You don't have to sit there and you can watch them out of order, whatever. You can go back, watch your favorites over and over again. It's a fab one. They should do one on polar bears. I don't know what they do with the polar bears, like mecha polar bear or something like that. I love that. But polar bears, I want
to say it's Blind Sight. That's what the name of the book is. Blind Sight.
Blind Sight or Blind Side?
Blind Sight.
Blind Sight. I'll have to look that one up.
I
love that.
Yes, novel by what is it? Peter Watts. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, Peter Watts. Yep, Blind Sight. Watts. Fantastic novel. Really fucks with your head trying to think on where cognition is and what is and is not important.
I love that kind of stuff.
But anyway.
So the polar bears, so we talk a lot, they're becoming kind of a symbol for global warming. They really are. And a lot of people say, oh, can't they just hunt different around land or stuff? Their entire hunting strategies revolve around it's like the ice flow. Like when the ice is thick, when the ice is thin, so that they can get to the prey that they need to eat. Seals don't come in on land, so they're not going to get them there. They have to keep going to where the ice is, which is pushing them farther and farther north, which is where their prey is. But there's only so far you can go. And
it's pushing them both farther north, and also they're having more human interactions south because the young males basically are looking for their own territory. And if we're getting compacted up north, then they have to go somewhere.
They have to go somewhere, And polar bears really don't want anything to do with humans.
No.
They're really not, like I said, most encounters I'll end up with the polar bear leaving. They kind of go, oh, human, and they go away.
Yeah.
Rarely, I mean, I think
though.
I think people are like, hey, I want to shoot a polar bear.
Sorry, bro.
Put themselves in shitty situations. Well, there are laws that if there are polar bear hunts, you can do that if you're weird and have too much money. But all of the meat goes to the Inuit people. You don't get to it
depends on where you're hunting from, because it depends on which country.
That's true. That would be in Canada. That they have a great respect for their native people now. Previously, not so much, but now they have a greater respect for the Inuit people, and I think you legally have to have an Inuit guide as well. But polar bears don't really have they don't really have a lot of predators, any. Really, the only thing that eats a polar bear is something that finds it dead, which another interesting fact, don't eat a polar bear or any Arctic marine mammal. Don't eat the liver.
Yeah, just
there's everybody says it's because there's a huge amount of vitamin A in it, and that much vitamin A will kill you. It will kill you.
You can,
but there's a new study saying that it's cadmium.
Cadmium, that could do it.
The Arctic waters have a lot of cadmium in it, and it'll store up in the liver.
Yeah.
And a lot of the symptoms. Okay, so obviously this doesn't happen to a lot of people, so it's really kind of hard to study what's happening.
Right.
Not many people. I mean, it's pretty unethical to like, hey, here, eat this polar bear liver and see what happens. But an ounce of polar bear liver will kill you. And the symptoms of the nausea, the skin issues, everything that you die from are very similar to cadmium poisoning. Cadmium is a heavy metal. It could be a combo. It could be the vitamin A and the cadmium from the water. Who knows? But one, don't go to McDonald's. Don't go eat an Arctic mammal. That's weird. Anyway, the
thing is, and also when you're having issues with that, honestly, you don't want to eat too much liver in general when you're limited on resources, because a lot of the polar explorers, that's what they think they died from, was except they ate their dog's liver and they think that killed them. Just because liver in general has vitamin A a lot.
Yeah, vitamin A is not water soluble, so your body has a hard time getting rid of it. It's only fat soluble.
Which is why it goes in the liver.
Yep. Yeah, which is why it builds up in the liver. You know what? So we're kind of coming to the end of the episode, which I feel terrible about because I did not make any all-you-can-eat buffet jokes, which, a polar bear eating 100 pounds and then taking a nap really reminds me of, like, my favorite Sunday afternoon.
Well, I'm still curious for the all-anticipating question to see if Jen has found the answer. Do we add this to the numbers or not?
Oh my gosh, you know what? we're gonna have to give me 2 seconds. I'm pretty sure we have to add it in. So Jen is keeping a tally of the animals that we go through
that get dicks hard. Yes.
Animals that are used for erectile dysfunction.
Now, no, most of these are not proven. People think they do.
Oh yeah, no. I'm not saying at all that you should go and eat a hairy toad. No, not at all. But humans will eat just about anything to cure erectile dysfunction.
We cured that before we cured cancer.
Right. Oh my gosh. So I'm reading this right now, and the first article that comes up, it talks about polar bear penis bones are being weakened by pollution.
Yes.
Our pollution, not only are we taking away their habitats, we're taking away their penises. God damn it. You know what? I think this might be one for the negative category.
All right. I haven't heard anything about that, but maybe we'll,
There's a whole article on polar penis, but no, it does not appear that humans have used polar bears for erectile dysfunction. If you
find out that somebody ate polar bear to try to get a hard on, send it our way so we can correct our numbers. This is very important data.
We're at 80% of the species we have covered in our podcast.
Somebody 80% fix their dick with it.
Try to fix their dick with it. Well done, humans. Well done. We need to spin it. That's the thing. Is like people really like to use was it kangaroo because of the amount of testosterone their testicles produce. So people love eating testicles of kangaroos.
Right.
The hairy frog. I can't remember why people think the slow loris is considered to be a mystical creature.
Yep.
Kimono dragon. Well, that's a bit self-sufficient. It's a dragon. It must help my penis get hard.
Exactly. So
and with
that, I guess we should probably
Yeah.
That question's been answered. We can now.
I'm sorry, mostly no. You know, but we'll try.
Put it in the comments if you find something.
If you do, we would love to. We would love to hear about your peanut.
Yes. All right.
You know, we didn't talk about penises nearly as much as we talk about penises on the show. There's so many cool polar bear stuff that didn't have a lot of penis in it. I guess.
I mean, I don't think they have a spectacular thing or a weird thing. It's just they have a.
They've got setup. No. Now I'm all upset that our pollution. Like, hey, people, stop using plastic bags. You're making the penis bones of polar bears weak.
Well, it's also making humans have that issue too.
But humans, we could do a whole episode.
The water that we're drinking is being, and now they just did a study.
The forever chemicals that we consume.
They just did a study on how many chemicals are actually in plastic, and it is about 10 to 15 times more than we previously thought.
Well, I know Americans, especially, our love of oil products, like petroleum products, we put it fucking in everything. Everything has petroleum products in it. So. And American men have the lowest sperm count of any nationality of men.
This is happening worldwide, though. Because
it's happening worldwide, but particularly Americans and our love of petroleum
we have a lot of plastic
driving it.
And how many people? Well, recently people just learned that they weren't supposed to put those freaking ramen cups, the styrofoam ramen cups, in the microwave. Apparently, people didn't realize that. Like, yeah, put that in a microwave. You're basically cooking your food in cancerous.
Yeah. So my question is, though, how are you supposed to cook it then? Like, it's the convenience factor is having the cup. And I know you're not supposed to, but what are you supposed to do with it?
Boil the water, boil. It literally says on the thing, you boil the water, put the water in, and then close the top and wait 3 minutes. That's it. That's it. You're just supposed to put boiling water in and wait 3 to 5 minutes.
So the styrofoam's to help keep the water hot so it cooks the noodle. I guess that makes more sense, I guess.
Yeah, it was never meant to be microwaved. It's literally.
I was like, what am I supposed to do? Take the noodles out, microwave them, and put them back in?
Social media discovery. I'm like, why did nobody realize it? It literally says all this stuff on the thing. It has for decades. But yeah, anyway, so people drink cancer all the time. But anyway, we all the time. Wrap this up.
Yes. So thank you once again for listening to What the Fauna and learning about the awesome, phenomenal adaptations of the polar bear. I'm almost disappointed, though. I have to say, I'm almost disappointed because I feel like this episode could have been kid friendly.
This one almost was, and then we started talking about dicks at the end.
Damn it! I'm gonna have to start our dick talk earlier.
Yeah, dick talk needs to happen, boy, sooner.
All right, sooner. Anyway,
until next time, all. I'm Whitney.
I'm Jen. We love you. Remember, no gods, no masters.
Bye-bye.